Hey guys, welcome back. On this week, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the growing pains of my personal journey, of my role here. So if you want to hear more about me, follow along. And if you don't leave. Don't leave. Like and subscribe, see what happens next. But we got a couple of interesting things I want to highlight. Hey guys, this week we're diving back in on one of my favorite topics, which is just stuff that happens around here that we're going to dive into. Hopefully this helps you in some area of ministry in your life. If you're considering giving up most of your life for ministry, of like a lifelong in ministry, maybe this will encourage you to do that, because in no way is anything I'm about to say a negative. I just had an interesting conversation with Shanae, our producer, Shane. Put a picture of yourself up here, preferably one from when you had long hair and earrings like we just talked about in your rock star days, maybe with the Jenkos and the chain.
No,
that's ideal. Nah.
All my pictures are my cat.
I'll find a way to get you in here. But we were just talking about just a really interesting concept of you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. This was literally 3 minutes ago in between takes of something, and I haven't been able to let it go because it feels like it's an exact portrayal of what happened this past week. I get it. I'm not a villain. I get it. Our senior pastor, my dad's not the villain. I get that. But it's just funny because this a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to fill in and teach on a Sunday, which I thoroughly love and has become a new, I don't want to say passion of mine in a wrong way. I didn't know that this is something I would care about when I was younger. So God can do so many wonderful things, and he can even use people like me. But one interesting thing is we're going to dive into my favorite thing, and that's just stuff that happens during services that we didn't expect. For instance, this one being, I was leading the service. I was giving cues and signals for communion for the worship team to come up. If you followed along, our traditional practice is that our first Sunday of the month we do communion. So from the worship team perspective, where I have a huge passion for, our traditional expectations are, we'll hear a phrase like, as is our custom, the first Sunday of the month, or traditionally the first Sunday of the month, or because it's the first Sunday of the month, or we're going to take communion. Anything that the trigger sounds, resembles, or looks like communion, we are called to action. We jump up, we rush the stage. Now we subtly, just quietly make our way up, get our instruments, set up our stuff. The PV knows that he's supposed to move over a step and a half so I can place my mic stand where it goes. If you want to watch one of our live streams from a first Sunday of a month, check the dates, check your calendars, have a blast with it. Scroll to the end, you'll see it. It's hilarious because it's never seamless, but it's as distraction free as we can arguably make it. I'm curious to see which one you pick, whether my instrument's unmuted or not when we're supposed to be playing over that, because in the room you can hear it and on stream sometimes you can't. I just love it. It's nothing but a blast. But we have expectations for our pastor to scoot over. I set my mic stand back out. We bring, we all get in position. We start going. We play over communion. We play through it. This past week, though, I was discussing ways that I've been corrected by people. If you want to check out 2 Sundays ago services, you can. Shane, put a link below so people can make fun of me, because I like, just this moment is hilarious. If you can almost hear Shane and Rue's sarcasm in their steps as they approach the stage, you can almost hear it when you get there. But I'll tell you, listen, like I said, I've learned to love what I'm doing, and God is really cool. But as I transitioned into communion, I was talking about biblical loving reproof and correction, specifically through Galatians chapter 4, when Paul writes to the church, and he says, I'm going to paraphrase it. My Bible's closed over there. I'm sorry. Paraphrase. He says, you loved me enough that you would have plucked out your own eyes and given them to me. Have I now become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Nothing has resonated more in my life than people being willing to tell me the truth at the risk of becoming an enemy. And you'll hear all about that if you decide to watch that one. But I had a few references. I had one that was Rue, who, again, we're promised we're going to bring her on eventually because I love that woman. But one that's Rue in there, one that was one of our elders, Paul Kaiser. You've seen him. He runs our security team. And one that was a buddy of mine's dad from growing up. And just those 3 examples, Paul Kaiser was the most recent one. I'm going to keep using his name, and I hope he watches this and tries to find me, because he does not like to be referenced. Too humble. Love that guy. The first time I ever led communion, I was happy with what I delivered, I thought, until I got feedback, and Let me rephrase that. It wasn't the first time I led communion. I want to be clear. It was the first time I intentionally led communion. And I don't mean that in a negative to the other times. There was one time where our pastor, my dad, literally handed me this. He said, I've got to go do communion, and walked away. And that was the only other time in our church body on our stage for our congregation that I had delivered communion. We've done it outside there. We do it in hospitals, visitation, things like that. But when you're faced with the opportunity to preach and go into communion and go into the elements, it was different. And I left out this section that's written about when Paul writes, you're eating and drinking judgment on yourself by not getting yourself right with God ahead of time. So you'll hear cliche phrases that we use around here. And I say cliche because Pastor Vince, the older, less good looking one, says often, we don't take a cracker count. We don't count the cups. We don't count the things that go by. And we still use the prepackaged individual ones. If you want to watch my rant and debate and debacle on that, you should be liked and subscribed and following along, whatever it takes to get this in your algorithm. But excluding all that, but we were looking at it, and I went in and he rebuked me. And I say rebuked because it felt painful, but it was for my good and for the good. He said, you left out the part where there's heavy weight in communion, eating and drinking judgment on yourself. So I used that as one of my third experience with being lovingly corrected. My third experience of being lovingly corrected by somebody. And it unfortunately / fortunately, some of the words I used brought us to a communion focus, and the worship team in the back looked at me like I had 6 heads. As they walked in what I would have thought was earlier than expected, because I still technically had time, because that was part of the end of my sermon and I hadn't technically transitioned into communion. But my attempt was to make it flow into communion. I don't want to say transition, but like my goal was that it was going to work and set the stage for it as we continued on, which apparently, allegedly, we don't have footage of this, sorry everybody. First service, I said, as is our tradition, brings me to my third point, and then I referenced something to that effect. I don't remember every word I said verbatim, but because Shane messed up my brain and accused me of stuff. But as I went through and I was like, okay, so I had the normal segue. I used the tradition, and I told him, like, I don't love using the word like this is our tradition. Because we're not that strict with it. Like, there are just plenty of times where it's like we pray about it and we're like, we're waiting a week or 2 or whatever. Irrelevant. You can watch our communion series on that if you want to see it. But as we go through, apparently I didn't use the correct trigger word. So the team was sitting there with a little bit of wonder and expectation and confusion. I don't know. I wasn't in the back. It's weird to not be with, my normal team. But I just see them walk in and I was like, I think I said something to the effect of, and as I close or wind down with my points, and they were like, that's a good time to come in and be, which is great. So they kind of came back in and they were ready. It unfortunately happened when I was still talking about Rue, and I had used Rue's name. I didn't use Rue's name first service because she was in the room. So I was like this wonderful woman in the back that guided me with these things. So make the connection if you want now. But as I went through for the second service, like I had used her name. I said, she's not in here. I can use her name. And then she walked in. I knew better. As Ruth sat me down, she didn't have to list every single, oh, she's in here now, and I used her name. Hey, love you anyway. She walked in. I said something about closing, and then they came running. It's perfect. Then, let me tell you a few things that cracked me up. Number one, she walked in, and I said, oh, here she is. I probably shouldn't use her name. I love that, because everybody looks like, who is it? And now they're standing in the back. I love it from where I sit, because it got everybody to look at you guys, and it just cracks me up. And it was not an intentional way to distract from anything. It was just part of what happened, and, I love those moments. But as Shane and I discussed, die a hero or live long enough to become the villain, the conversations are the same ones I have with my old man. Hey, I thought you were going to transition us like this. Hey, I thought you were going to give us a cue like this. Hey, I was confused by what you said here. Hey, this and that. And I was like, oh my goodness. Oh man, it's frustrating and painful. But I will say, like, we do have, listen, I'll give you guys insider information. We dissect our worship. We dissect our conversations. We dissect our services. And I hope you guys love and follow along with a lot of these. But one thing that we have is anytime, and I made this rule with my old man, was anytime he references communion towards the end of a service, I'm coming up. It's not worth the risk. Because one week he didn't say any of the trigger phrases like custom, tradition, expectation, worship team come up, nothing. He didn't do any of those. Stand with us for this, nothing. So we were just kind of like, are we supposed to go? Are we supposed to go? And after you start to look at the clock now, in case you weren't sure, we do have time cues. They're not rigid. because none of us ever really want to suppress the word coming out or what the Holy Spirit really does have for us sometimes. But sometimes we do try to adhere to certain parts of the parameters. So if you're ever here on a Sunday and you want to look back at a precise time, you'll see Vincent stand up, adjust his shirt, adjust his pack, put his in-ears in, and he does all that while standing, because that's the cue to say, hey, you committed to a time, get ready. So we have that. I didn't get that this week, but I'm much more diligent to watch the time because I'm usually the bigger critic of the time. So I was watching that with him, and they came in and I was like, man, it's a little early. And I was like, oh, I know what I said. I figured it out, but it was fine. And as I even told Shane in our in-between, I was like, listen, like, it doesn't bother me. Like, the band behind me feels actually more normal and more comfortable in the current state. So I get, it's, if you guys all came up with me, it wouldn't faze me or distract me in any way. I mean, there are things you could do to distract me. Let's be real. I got ADHD like crazy, but generally speaking, just your presence and or what they're doing isn't going to be a distraction for that. So they came in and they were kind of like, are we supposed to come on? I could see it on their faces, and we started to do that. And I did have a time where my goal was to discuss different aspects of communion, because we often look at communion and in a good way. We look back and reflect on what Jesus did. We do it in remembrance of him. And I'm not going to go into the whole preachy concept. You're going to have to go look at our communion one if you want to see that. But I referenced some of our stuff, and I intentionally tried to make it known that we were headed to communion, not the rebuke of the way I delivered communion before. So as we got through all of that and they finally came up and we got through communion and we prayed, it was funny because I knew that I confused them. But I'm going to choose to blame them for it and just choose to be blameless in this. Absolutely. I can't think of one thing I've done wrong ever, so why start now? Bruh. And as we just kind of go through this, it was just one of those fun learning examples. And we're going to talk more about some of my own personal growth and growing pains and things like that. But it was just an interesting thing as we were just joking about how it's like you could see yourself become the things you were trying to avoid. Sometimes it's in the workplace, sometimes you're looking at the youth, sometimes whatever, and you're just looking back and you're like, now I'm prey to some of the stuff that I was upset about. And it really does challenge you to extend grace to the other side. So I'm sure there's 57 or 86 sermons in there about how you can choose to love on people through their circumstances and maybe check yourself at the door. But just an interesting week and an interesting time around here. And no matter what, sometimes even though it's a fun, lighthearted situation, there's still stuff to be learned on how you're going to interact in your area of ministry. There's still stuff to learn in the way that we're going to conduct ourselves in our ministry. And our goal is that God gets the glory in everything. We'll see you guys around.